Welcome all to another episode of the Elite Era podcast. I'm your host, Mystic, as always, and today we're going to be recapping the March 26th episode of Smackdown Live, which is a very eventful episode. Had a very eventful main event, and also had a very disappointing women's match, which we'll get into later when we get into the show. But starting off the recap, we have the opening segment where we had New Day come out to the ring and they cut a promo talking about how Kofi's been mistreated not only the past couple weeks, but how he's been mistreated his entire career by the WWE. And they call Vince McMahon out. They want answers. Vince comes out. He gets in the ring. He's about to cut a promo, and then Bryan comes out. Daniel Bryan just starts burying the New Day. He calls them all B+ players. And then Xavier points out how hypocritical Daniel Bryan is coming off, because Daniel Bryan was a few years ago in the build-up to WrestleMania 30. He was in a very similar position to how Kofi is now. He was the underdog, and he was trying to fight against the authority to get himself a match, and he was called the B+ player. And now he's calling it to Kofi, and Xavier's pointing out the hypocrisy in his statements. And of course, just Bryan isn't having any of it because he's a heel. And then just Bryan goes on to rant more a little bit of how replaceable the New Day are, how they're still lagged, until Vince cuts him off. Vince tells him to shut up. He cuts him off. He talks to Kofi. He says how Kofi's had enough chances. Kofi will be getting no more chances to main event WrestleMania, but that the New Day will. That he sees value in the New Day, and if Xavier and Big E can win a gauntlet match in the main event, then Kofi gets his WrestleMania match. So this opening segment was just to set up the main event, which of course is going to be the gauntlet match, which of course carries over from the themes that we've had of the last week's gauntlet match and the one a few weeks back. And it puts all the hope of Kofi's WrestleMania match, on his partners of the New Day, Xavier and Big E. And so that sets up the match for later on. And then when we transition into the Smackdown Women's title match, which was between Asuka and Charlotte, and this was for the women's title match. And I'm not even going to go over the match. I'm just going to go straight to the finish. The finish was Asuka tapping out to Charlotte in a figure 8. And which now Charlotte is the new SmackDown Live Women's Champion, which it's very disappointing to see. Going back to TLC and Royal Rumble, we all thought there was big things in store for Asuka. Asuka was being put on the same level as Ronda, Becky, Charlotte. She was up there with them, and I guess now we can see the only reason she was ever even elevated that high was to get the belt off of Becky, so she could win the Rumble and move on to Ronda. But now they just give the belt here to Charlotte, which is for no reason. There's already a belt involved in that match. Charlotte isn't going to be defending the belt in the triple threat at Mania, unless somehow with this stipulation they have on Monday, where maybe if Charlotte turns on her teammates on Raw, then she gets kicked out of the match. But I don't see that happening. There's no way they would just take her out of the main event. So there was really no reason at all to give Charlotte the title here. It devalues the women's division, which was awful, or the SmackDown Live Women's Division, which was awful as it was, because before this, they had advertised a Fatal 4-Way to see who would become the number one contender for Asuka, which was between Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville, Naomi, and Carmella. And just looking at the talent there, they're all okay workers, but none of them are at WrestleMania match level. If any of them won, that was going to be a kickoff show at best. And those women are all going to be in the Battle Royal. So just the state of the SmackDown Live Women's division right now is pretty awful. Like, even besides out of those 4, who's even else is in the division? Lacey Evans and Nikki Cross are still floating between brands for some reason. And then we have Lana, who isn't even a wrestler at this point. She's just a valet, I guess, for Rusev again. But anyways, the SmackDown Live Women's division, just in this one segment, it just shows how it is important. Asuka was she's a joke. She was made to be a joke in this segment. She lost again to Charlotte, just like last year. Couldn't even get her win back. She lost. She taps out clean to the figure eight. Hands over her title 2 weeks before WrestleMania. That's the baffling part. I guess they just really had no plans in Asuka at all. They had no faith in Asuka and her carrying the division. The division they needed Charlotte. I assume she's gonna stay on SmackDown. After, if Becky wins the Raw title, she's obviously switching over to Raw. And I guess they just want Charlotte to stay there and hold down the division and I guess dominate the division again for another year, like she did before. Which is unfortunate because Asuka, there's just so much to do with Asuka. Asuka was top. Asuka was main eventing. Asuka beat Becky, who's gonna main event WrestleMania in a few weeks. She beat her clean at the Royal Rumble. There's no reason at all to bury her like this. Which, like I said, is unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. I guess the company, namely Vince, doesn't see any value in her, and they just threw another title into this triple threat match at Mania for no reason. And they just gave the title to Charlotte. So hopefully in the Superstar Shake-Up, things get shaken up and we get more talent, women talent on SmackDown, because as it is now, it's pretty pathetic. Anyways, moving on from that, we had the Kurt Angle and AJ Styles match, part of Kurt Angle's retirement tour, which is really nice. You know, it's nice to see Angle get to choose his opponents. Reportedly, all these opponents he's been facing off, like he did last night on Raw against Mojo. These are all opponents he's chose, unlike his WrestleMania opponent, which is Baron Corbin, which I hope is going to be a swerve for Cena. If it wasn't already planned to be a swerve, I hope they realize how awful a decision it was to book Baron in that match, and they do make it a swerve and change it to Cena. I don't know why they thought that was a good idea at all. But nonetheless, this match was a very, very, very short match. Wasn't even much of a match. It just very early in the match, AJ goes for the calf crusher. Angle reverses it into an angle lock. A little bit more action goes on, and then Randy comes out of nowhere and hits an RKO on AJ, which AJ wins by DQ. And then after, Kurt just lays out Randy with a angle slam, and he's just left standing tall for, again, I don't understand what the point of this was. It helps further the Randy and AJ feud a bit, which I guess they already cut an amazing promo, so maybe they just needed a little bit more physicality this week. But anyways, it didn't do anything for Kurt. Kurt stands tall over these two for no reason. He's not involved with these two. His WrestleMania match is one of the most lackluster. The AJ and Randy feud is way more interesting, and it's probably going to be a much better match than the Kurt Angle retirement match with Baron Corbin. And it didn't see any purpose in having him stand tall over Randy here after Randy laid out AJ. Nonetheless, it wasn't very long. It was, like I said, very short match, very short segment. Didn't take up too much time. And that transitioned into a backstage segment, which was I think it was a pre-filmed video with Rey Mysterio and his son Dominic, who's like two Rey Mysterios. He's like 2 feet taller than him. It's funny looking back at that 2005 SummerSlam, I believe. That was the custody. That was the match over Dominic custody between the ladder match between Rey and Eddie Guerrero. And it's just funny seeing how that was 14 years ago, and Dominic's all grown now. He's massive. He's way bigger than Rey. But anyways, they just cut a promo hyping up in support of Kofi, talking about how they've known him, or how Rey's known him for so long and how good of a guy he is. And the interview, he just asked him about Joe, and then he just cuts a little promo on Joe and how he's gonna teach him a lesson. And he's at WrestleMania, he's gonna defeat him and become the new U.S. champ. And anyways, we go back into the ring, and The Miz cuts a promo on Shane McMahon, and he declares that he wants a Falls Count Anywhere match with Shane, which is cool. This build, honestly, I think it's one of my favorite builds that we have going up to this Mania. I think it's been a really well told story ever since Crown Jewel. It's a little bit shaky from week to week, but looking at the overall story, it's actually really good. But the only problem there was the match is, as fun as these two wrestlers are, they aren't going to put out a classic. But given this extra stipulation of a Falls Count Anywhere, it's the same thing with Triple H and Batista. I would never want to see those two in a normal singles match. But the fact that they added the stipulation of no holds barred to that match means they can use all the smokes and mirrors they want. and make it really fun and exciting, like that Sting Triple H match a few years ago, which had the wrong ending, but the match overall was just fun. It was a fun brawl with a lot of smoke and mirrors, and that's what a Triple H match should be. That's what the part-time match should be. A good nostalgia pop or something. These guys, I know Triple H has a fetish for 20-minute matches, 30-minute matches, but he doesn't need to go out there and do that every WrestleMania anymore. But anyways, going back to the Shane and Miz match, adding the Falls Count Anywhere stipulation is going to be awesome, and I hope it leads to Shane's death spot of him jumping off something really high. Maybe they go backstage and there's like a Titantron or something, I don't know. Maybe just there's something around that Shane's going to scale up, and maybe Miz is going to chase after him, and he's going to yank him off, like the Steve Blackman 2002 SummerSlam, I think, spot where he throws him off the Charon. So that stipulation, I'm pretty sure that's what their finish is going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if their finish is something similar to that, just a big high spot, and then they get pinned somewhere in the backstage area, or maybe just around the ringside area on the set, maybe. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe if there's a clear, obvious place on the set where Shane can climb and jump off of, then he'll probably climb and jump off of it. It's probably being built specifically around him. But anyways, Miz cuts that promo, and then Shane comes out with his security wall of indie wrestlers, and then the mid card, or not even the mid card, the undercard with Shelton Benjamin, one of the Colognes, just one of them, and Sanity, which it's a little bit depressing seeing Sanity in there, but honestly, I was never that big of a fan of them. It's just their gimmick doesn't work without Nikki Cross. I think Nikki Cross was what made them special, and when they came up with this without Nikki Cross, that took away what made them cool, in my opinion. So, but still, it's kind of sad seeing them not even a year on the main roster, and they're security lackeys for Shane McMahon, which is a little bit sad for them. But yeah, if they don't like it, I guess they can go to AEW like the others. But anyways, Shane comes out behind the wall, of course. He cuts a promo. He accepts Miz's challenge, so confirming the match is now Falls Count Anywhere. He cuts a promo on the Miz. He puts up on the Titantron, a pic of him grabbing Miz's father by the face at Fastlane, where he turned heel on him, grabbing him by the face, starts talking about how he wished he just would have beat him up more. And then he has a pretty funny line here where he says he wished he could have beat up the Miz's dad more for making the biggest mistake of his life. Miz-stake, a little pun there by Shane. Anyways, this gets Miz riled up. Miz gets mad, runs out the ring, goes through security. He just has a little scuffle with security, takes out all those indie wrestlers, takes them all out, and then he goes out on the undercard of evil, I guess you could call him. The heels, they come after him. He takes out one of the Cologne, takes out Shelton Benjamin, and then he brawls a little bit with Sanity. He brawls a little bit on the outside of the ring, setting up that Falls Count Anywhere stipulation where they can brawl wherever they want. And he gives it to them, gets up on the barricade and does a huge little splash, which it will never not be funny seeing Miz hit a splash, considering the type of worker he is and the type of how he's been the anti-indie wrestler. Like, for so many years, he's been the safe WWE worker for so long. And now he's over here hitting dives on Sanity. But, it's on Saturday. It was on Killian Dane, and I think Alexander Wolf. So, two big dudes. Pretty soft landing, probably. As soft as it could be. Hopefully Miz doesn't get injured from his babyface run, trying new moves. Because he's been hitting, like, suicide dives and stuff recently. But anyways, he does that. He stands tall over the Sanity, and, Shane just backs away. Heads back to the back. Smug, arrogant Shane. Anyways, like I said, that sets up their match, being a Falls Count Anywhere match, which I think is very exciting. This match, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of smoke and mirrors match, and it's a Shane McMahon match, so of course he's going to have special treatment on his matches, and I'm sure he's going he's gonna make sure what they do is something special. He's had pretty fun matches. The Undertaker match was a little bit slow, but that dive off the cell made it worth it. The AJ match was absolutely brilliant. They somehow made AJ Styles versus Shane McMahon the best match of that Mania card. And then last year he had a pretty decent tag match with Daniel Bryan against Kevin and Sammy, but that was just basically overshadowed completely by Daniel Bryan, who of course had just returned from injury. Which is funny now, seeing how the roles are reversed. Last year, Daniel and Shane were the faces going against heel Sammy and Kevin, and now they're both heels. And Kevin Owens right now is a face, and Sami Zayn presumably will be a face when he returns as well. So it's just funny to see how that's changed in a year. But anyways, after that segment, we get the gauntlet match, the main event. This thing went about a little bit over half an hour. And then we get New Day, Xavier and Big E. They take on the Club first. They make quick work of them, hitting up, down, eliminate them, and then we keep getting cutting backstage where we have all the baby faces like Kofi, Becky, and Rey Mysterio, Jeff Hardy, the Hardys. Just watching the monitor and watching the match, which really added, I think, a pretty good, atmosphere to the match, and an atmosphere to the entire story, actually, of how everyone's in support of Kofi. It's nice seeing the entire roster rally behind this one guy. Even Becky, Becky's going to be main eventing WrestleMania, and it's still nice to see her, backstage support Kofi, and then after the match, of course, everyone else comes out. But anyways, after they knock out the Club, we get Nakamura and Rusev next, and again, a little quick match, which they end with another up, down, down. Bar comes out next. Bar, they beat the Bar again with a Xavier hit, gets a roll up on Sheamus after a quick little match. But then the Bar, of course, being the heels they are, they beat him up a little bit. They get a table, set it up in the ring, and they put Big E through the table. So that takes out Big E, and then the commentators are putting it over heavy that Xavier's on his own now, and whoever comes out next is going to be easy pickings. They can eliminate the New Day very easily now that Big E has been weakened. And then out next come out the Smackdown Live Tag Team Champions, the Usos. They come in, they look at Big E, they look at Xavier, they get a mic, and then they just cut a pretty awesome promo about how they love Kofi. Kofi's earned their respect. Kofi's earned the respect of everyone else, and they respect Kofi and the New Day, and they respect what they're doing. And it goes back especially to how back in 2017 these guys had a hell of a feud, and after that end of it, they grew to respect each other, and how these two teams really have been the tag team division of SmackDown Live. They've been at the top. They've basically formed it. And it's just cool seeing the Usos show some respect to Big E and Xavier here. They decided to forfeit their match, and they let Big E and Xavier rest a little bit until the final opponent comes out, which we cut to backstage. We cut to Daniel Bryan and Rowan. They're backstage. They're pissed. Bryan's throwing around chairs and stuff in his locker room. But anyways, they come out for their final match, and this is such a hell of a little brawl they had. It was more of a brawl than an actual match. They had a quick brawl here at the end of this match, which is just fantastic because last week we had a gauntlet match and they were screwed over. So there's a little bit of doubt planted into your head. I was doubting myself a little bit since I didn't even know if if Xavier and Big E were gonna win here, given what happened last week. But either way, they had a lot of good convincing near falls. Eric Rowan looks like a monster in this match. He was beating up everyone. Daniel was just being Daniel Bryan, the best heel right now in the company. And they make their way to the outside. Bryan yells at Eric to set up the table, clear the table. They're going to put him through the table. He gets Xavier in the iron claw position. He's about to put him through the table. Xavier reverses, throws Rowan into the post. Rowan bounces off the post. Here comes Big E. Big E tosses him again into the post, and then they throw Rowan over the table, and Big E lifts the table up, which was awesome. Big E really sold this fall. We've seen people like Braun just with ease flip it over, But Big E was really selling the struggle of having to lift this, since of course he was put through a table not too long ago, and he's been through 3 other matches since the Usos didn't count. He's been through 3 other matches, and he was really selling the struggle of lifting this table, which it really got the crowd hyped. And if he drops the table, he manages to flip it over. He puts it on Rowan, and Rowan gets counted out, which means the New Day wins, which means Kofi gets his WrestleMania moment. He gets to go to Mania. He is going to face Daniel, which all the baby faces come out that were watching backstage on the monitor. They all come out. Kofi comes out. They celebrate in the ring. And it's just a really good feel-good moment. You know, this story, if the women weren't main eventing this year, I'd put this story with them. This story, I think, this story is better than the women's story. The women's story's been a little bit of a mess, but it's the women's first chance to main event WrestleMania, and you just can't pass that up. But anyways, the story's been awesome. We cut backstage to Vince McMahon. He's getting ready to leave in his limo. Interviewer goes up to him, asks, "Is this it? Is this over?" And Vince says, "Yes. Kofi has his match with Daniel." But then he pauses and he questions, "But I don't think a B+ player like Kofi can beat Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania." So I really hope Kofi wins at Mania. A lot of speculation has been going around. Since the big 3 matches, of course, are Kofi, Daniel, Seth, Lesnar, and then the women's triple threat. The women's triple threat is going on last, so Becky has to win that. No way they ended off with everyone just booing the hell out of whoever else wins that's not Becky. So Becky has to win that. Seth, I need to win that because Brock Lesnar needs to get the hell out of there and drop the title finally. And then Kofi needs to win this because it's the story's been built around it, and they've even brought in like racial implications with the promos they cut on Twitter and stuff. And you can't have a repeat of the Triple H Booker T thing from Mania like a decade ago. You just can't repeat that, which means all 3 matches are having babyface wins, the top 3 matches, which a lot of people are speculating, okay, Vince doesn't like that. You have to balance it out somehow and get some heat, and one of those is going to have to lose. And Becky, it won't be Becky because she's in the main event, which just leaves the Kofi or Seth is losing, which is very unfortunate. Hard to choose between those two. It's a lose-lose situation. Hopefully all 3 of them win, though. Hopefully we just get a really good, feel-good WrestleMania. Keep carrying this momentum from the ending of Smackdown to such a really good, feel-good moment. Hopefully that happens again at WrestleMania, when Kofi becomes the first African-American to win the WWE Championship. We've had them win the world title before, but not the WWE title. He's going to cement his legacy there, and it's just going to be such an awesome thing, And I'm sure Daniel would win it after real quick. Kofi was never meant to be in this position, so I don't think they even have any plans for him after Mania. It's just going to be this big moment, and then he's going to get like Daniel Bryan from after WrestleMania 30, where he just faced Kane in a garbage feud. That was his first feud after winning the title. He faced Kane. So I'm sure they'll give Kofi like Randy Orton or something, and then he'll quickly drop the title back to Daniel. But anyways, that was the SmackDown Live recap. It was such a fun show. Hashtag Kofi Mania has been trending everywhere. Such a feel-good moment at the end. Such a down and disappointing moment with what's going on in the women's division. That's just depressing. There's not even going to be a SmackDown women's match now at Mania, which is a good thing because there's too much matches either way, but it's such a bad thing. So disappointing. Asuka's going to be relegated to that Battle Royal, and it's going to suck really bad. It's just depressing to see how they're stating it, but hopefully that gets fixed with a Superstar shakeup, or maybe they call up some NXT women. Maybe Shayna Baszler goes there or something. That division needs to be saved. It's in critical condition right now. It's literally on life support. Asuka was the last tube they had connected, and they just cut that. So they only have a few moments before the division just dies completely. Before everyone just acknowledges it as a joke it is. But anyways, this main event stuff with Kofi was awesome. The Miz segment I really enjoyed. False count and more stipulation being added, it's perfect. The Kurt versus AJ Styles match, that was it was just a baffling segment a little bit, but it didn't take up too much time, so it wasn't that bad. And then the opening promo was also good, setting up this main event, which, like I've said many times now, which is so awesome. It was so awesome seeing the 3 of them be successful in this main event, and now Kofi finally having his match, only 2 weeks away from Mania. But better late than never. But anyways, I've been Mystic. That was the SmackDown Live recap. If you guys like this podcast, please leave a like, comment on this video, share this video, and subscribe to the channel for more content. Later, guys.